case basically for final verdict is about to happen, right? So same argument used by the lawyers, that this was a child, that person was juvenile, they were not in their state of mind while they conduct this heinous crime, right? Judiciary reject all those argument, right? So same thing which we are discussing right now. Next is theories of ethics. I hope all the theories has been discussed in every possible manner, right? So very briefly, if we have to categorize ethical theory, I'm just revising, right? I'm presuming all this stuff has already been discussed in class. One is called as virtue ethics. Other is called as conduct ethics. Third is now there might be many categorization, but for simplistic understanding to approach case studies, we have categorized them into three. Virtue ethics is one category of ethical theory. Second category of ethical theory, which is based on conduct of a person, human action of a person, whether means are emphasized here or ends are emphasized here. So if means are emphasized here, this will be segregated into three. One is all things are discussed in class. Any of this theory which you have not studied? Fine. Virtue ethics aware of? What is that? What means whose character? Correct, you are saying. Correct. Just put the right words here. See, there are three categories of theories. They are not end in itself, but for understanding, we have categorized them into three. Virtue ethics is propounded by Greek philosopher Socrates, Plato, right? They, before judging an action of an individual, first look into the person of a basically caliber or any person having particular qualities. Rather than analyzing action in itself, they will analyze the qualities of an individual, or what they use the term virtues of an individual. So they say don't look into the action, look into the person who has conducted this action. And if this person has virtues or quality in himself, herself, then that action is ethical action. For example, I consider Raja Ram Mohan Roy as very noble person, right? Now, if he end up murdering someone, I will consider that as ethical. Why? Because I consider Raja Ram Mohan Roy as a virtuous person having virtues. So rather than looking into the actions of an individual and analyzing action, they used to analyze the person itself who is conducting that action. And if that person has certain virtues, like Plato identified four cardinal virtues. One is fortitude, second is temperance, third is wisdom, fourth is courage. Not courage, sorry, justice. Right? So if these four virtues are present in an individual, whatever action he or she will commit, that action is ethical action. Right? So if you follow virtue ethics, rather than analyzing an action, what you do? You will analyze a person, whether he had certain qualities which could be called as virtuous quality. Fortitude means courage itself at the time of any crisis, whether you stand for right or wrong at the time of testing period, is what reflect your courage, what is referred as fortitude. Temperance means avoiding excess. So suppose you got 1 crore rupees in Kaun Banega Crorepati. How you are using that money for buying luxury, basically clothes, vehicles or other things, or by maintaining a status quo. So avoiding excess, right? You're not end up spending every money, you're not end up saving every money. You're using it wisely, meaning avoiding excess. So in any extreme situation, whether you use your anger or whether you use your calmness, in extreme situation, what kind of quality you will prefer? An extreme quality and or a moderate quality is showing your temperance in your character. Wisdom meaning knowledge plus experience. Having knowledge is not wisdom itself unless it is added with an experience. You have knowledge about people, action at the time of crisis, but you have never experienced it. At the time of disaster, you being a district collector yourself experienced that building is about to collapse. People were ready to throw other out from the building to rescue themselves. So that gives you wisdom after having a first-hand experience, what actually happened at the time of disaster. So not just having knowledge of disaster, but if it is added with an experience, it will be counted as wisdom. Right? Last is justice. Plato has written a lot about justice in his book Republic. Right? And his theory of justice is so far almost for many centuries ruled the world. Many principles of jurisprudence or the law are directly or indirectly based on Plato and Aristotle theory of justice. So we'll discuss when we discuss moral thinker and philosophers about his theories of justice. But by far, he gave these four cardinal values, which is considered as a part of virtue of an individual. Likewise, Aristotle has given his own virtues. He will look into what he called as golden means. Again, it is somewhat expansion of temperance only, avoiding any extreme. Always go for golden mean. For Indian context, it will be better if we understand with Buddha's Madhyam Marg. Buddha was basically desperate to get enlightenment, right? There was a story of Sujata. Buddha was basically doing extreme kind of basically meditation, right? 4-5 दिन तक he was into deep state of meditation to such an extent that his whole body started turning into a skeleton. 4-5 दिन से continuous meditation कर रहे थे. It went on to extent of 10 days, 15 days. He forgot to eat any food, consume anything, and ultimately his body started turning to a skeleton. बहुत दुबले होने लगे और he continued to perceive the ultimate goal of getting enlightenment. उन्हें लगा ऐसे enlightenment मिल जाएगा. There was a lady, farmer's daughter, Sujata, who was always observing him while passing to take water from nearby water body. Now one day she told Buddha, right, कि वीणा के तार को इतना मत खींचो कि तार टूट जाए और इतना लूज मत करो कि उससे आवाज ही ना आए. Always apply modest force on the wires of a musical instrument veena, right? So from that word of Sujata, basically he get some kind of idea and he basically start consuming food after that. And he come up with a principle of madhyam marg after that, meaning avoiding any extreme. So you should not go to that extreme which will harm your body itself, and ultimately you will defeat the purpose. Madhyam marg meaning try to follow the middle path. Right? So that will be a way to enlightenment. Understand it in context of Buddha to understand what Aristotle was trying to say about golden mean. He categorized certain qualities as extremes quality, right? And based on that, he will come up with the qualities which come under golden mean. For example, there are some people who are spendthrift. उनको 100 रुपए दो तुरंत खर्चा कर देंगे, right? And there are some people who are ultimate miser. वो 10 साल तक 100 के 100 जमा रखते हैं उस चीज को, right? So these are the two extreme, misery and spendthrift. There might be a golden mean between them, right? Who will use it optimally and also save it optimally. So that is what we mean by golden mean. If you see Indian society as a whole and Indian governance system as a whole, you will find it revolved around Buddhist philosophy of middle path only. When after independence, India was having a choice whether to follow parliamentary form of democracy or presidential style democracy. Which system we follow? Middle path. We follow good element of presidential as well as parliamentary form of government. When it was asked which economic model you are going to follow, capitalism or socialism, what we followed? Mixed economy, right? So kahin nahi jayenge, never to any extreme, middle path, right? Similarly, which kind of system you should follow in Indian society in terms of basically electoral, first past the post system or proportional representation system or majority system. So they prefer the easiest one, first past the post. They always try to attain some middle path in that, right? So that is something which Indian society as a whole used to follow in letter and spirit, Buddha, right? Because our constitution makers were deeply influenced by the philosophy of Buddha, when their constitution principle also derived many things from various republics during the time of Buddha period. Got the point? So these are virtue ethics. Any doubt in this? Second is conduct ethics. Conduct means conducting some action. Now, before conducting an action, you always have two things in your mind. Whether you will focus on the end or the goal, or whether you focus on means, right? So, suppose, for understanding, suppose you want to clear this civil service examination, right? And you have a very clear-cut goal in front of you, that I am going to clear this examination by hook or crook. An examination, if provided a chance, you will not shy away from cheating in the examination also, right? आप फर्रे बना के लेके गए एग्जाम में बढ़िया से, right? So that you will fulfill your goals of becoming a civil servant. That is one way. Second is you follow means, meaning no matter what, whether I become IAS or civil servant or not, I will not deter from my principle of following honesty and integrity. That is your emphasis on means, no matter what will be the end. So on that basis, we have another set of theories of ethics called as conduct ethics. In conduct ethics, we'll look into two things: whether actions done emphasized on means or whether it is done emphasizing on ends. So, if it is emphasizing on means, we have utilitarian theory given by Jeremy Bentham and J.S. Mill, who were supporter of this theory. He said that utilitarianism stands for maximum happiness for maximum people. Again, he deliberately used the term maximum, right? Not majority, not 90%, right? He deliberately used the term maximum happiness. Anything you do, if it results into giving happiness to maximum people, that is considered as ethical action based on utilitarianism. For example, suppose Indian government start a policy that everyone in India, as per the household norms, every household, 25 crore households are there in India. Every household considered to have 5 members. So we have 125 crore approximately, the size of population. So every household will be given 10,000 rupees per month. Will it generate happiness? Free का पैसा मिल रहा है, सबको अच्छा लगेगा, right? So it will generate happiness. Is it going to be experienced by maximum people? इंडिया में वैसे ही लोग भूखे रहते हैं फ्री की चीजों के लिए. So they will be very much happy, and ultimately it will serve the purpose. Most of the people in India will be happy with this kind of policy. But is it prudent policy for long-term economic growth of India? Obviously not. It will make people not to work because they are already getting something for their survival. They continue to stay in home. 10,000 रुपए तो मिल ही रहे हैं, क्या करेंगे जाके, right? So they don't have any motivation. Many people are working only for their survival and for motivation. They lose motivation. It might hamper the economic growth, right? There are other school of thought also who say otherwise also, but it will generate maximum happiness. For example, suppose you come across some people whom you consider has committed some heinous crime like rape, and you are given opportunity to kill, and you along with your 100 friends go to that place, end up killing those 3 or 4 people. Is it generate maximum happiness among the members of society? It might not, right? I'm referring to Hyderabad case, right, where 4 people who were accused, not even proven guilty so far, who were accused of committing heinous crime, were killed in an encounter by police. It generated happiness in the whole society. People started garlanding the police officer whom they used to curse every time, right? So change in the perspective. So is it generating happiness for maximum people? Yes, utilitarian theory will justify that action. अच्छा किया मार दिया. So is mob lynching justified? Because it generates happiness for maximum people. So if you are a believer of utilitarian theory, you will end up justifying mob lynching. एक ही तो मर रहा है, बाकी के 100 लोग को तो खुशी मिल रही है. Maximum happiness for maximum people. Most of the people considered and tried to give justification for mob lynching also, applying utilitarian approach only. मुझे खुशी मिलना चाहिए और मेरी सोसाइटी को खुशी मिलना चाहिए. That's it. Maximum people will attain maximum happiness and that will justify the end in itself. तो आपने क्या मीन लिया? It is immaterial. आपने उसको मार दिया, you deprive that person of his life, but it is immaterial. You end up getting the desired result, maximum happiness. Getting the point? So utilitarian theory would not emphasize on end. क्या हुआ इसका? मर गया, जिंदा रहा, whatever fate he or she will attain. What is materialist means. So in Arabic countries in medieval times, and even in most of countries right now also, if a woman found into adultery, there is a codification of law which suggests that she will be stoned to death. Where people, she would be put on the street, उसको street में रख देते हैं, बांध देते हैं, and people were asked to throw or pelt stone on her until she dies. And this is a kind of punishment which is still prevalent in many Arabic nations, right? So that generate happiness among the society कि अच्छा हुआ मर गई because she was engaged into adultery, right? So that is, if you follow utilitarianism, you will end up justifying that action. वो मर गई, but it is immaterial. What is material is means you applied. That means is generating maximum happiness for maximum people, right? Similarly, many Islamic countries have law for blasphemy, meaning anyone who is criticizing the God and his scriptures. So if you are living in Muslim country, if you criticize Prophet Muhammad, who is messenger, or Quran or God, it is considered as blasphemous. If you are living in Christian country like Ireland, it is blasphemous to criticize Jesus Christ and Bible, right? So many religious based country considered a law related to blasphemy, and they have penal provision for that. Recently, one person in Pakistan is imprisoned and getting capital penalty for the blasphemy. Asia Bibi case is also very much infamous for the same thing. So how you can justify these actions as ethical based on utilitarianism. Is it clear? You may have your reason for your action, so you will consider that as ethical action. Hedonism means maximizing pleasure. Anything that end up resulting into increase in your pleasure. आपको मजा आने लगा कुछ चीज करके. That is what hedonism is. So after consumption of any narcotic substance, it put you into some other world, right? You went into some transcendental world where you start believing everyone is your brother, right? तू मेरा भाई है, and you are in ultimate stage of enlightenment. बस आपको बस निर्वाणा मिलने ही वाला है, right? So it generates some pleasure, it generates some happiness for yourself. Maybe आप सोसाइटी को पत्थर मार रहे हो, it is immaterial. आपको खुशी मिलना चाहिए, right? आपने किसी से 1 लाख रुपए उधार ले लिया और आप इंडिया छोड़ के भाग गए. खुशी तो मिली होगी आपको, फ्री का 1 लाख रुपए मिल गया, वापस भी नहीं करना है, right? करोड़ों रुपए लेके भाग गए, and you are living in a big mansion, having lot of pleasure elements nearby you, right? Ultimately it is maximizing whose pleasure? Yours pleasure. That theory is called as hedonism. And if anything you do, any action, किसी को मारने में मजा आता है, right? Like if you are a teacher in a primary school, you love to beat children for no reason. कि इस पे भी पड़ती है क्या? नहीं. तो that is something which is hedonism and it is justified if it is maximizing your pleasure. Getting the point? So one Indian philosopher was very much known for promoting this kind of philosophy referred as Charvak. Charvak says that ultimate basically aim in life of an individual should get maximum pleasure for himself or herself. He went on to extend saying that even if you required to take loan to fulfill your pleasure, you should not shy away from taking loan also, right? His famous statement was eat, drink and be merry. Merry Christmas बोलते हैं ना, means happy Christmas. So खाओ पियो और मौज करो was his school of thought. No matter आप उधार के पैसे से खा रहे हो, उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. Ultimately आपको pleasure मिलना चाहिए. अगर ये चीज हो रही है, that action is ethical action as per hedonism. Is it clear? Now egoism meaning maximization of self interest. मेरा इंटरेस्ट सर्व होना चाहिए, दैट्स इट. दूसरा, सेकेंड पर्सन इज इमटेरियल, राइट? दूसरा पर्सन इज नॉट वर्दी ऑफ थॉट इवन, राइट? सो दैट शुड बी द केस. माई सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट शुड बी फुलफिल्ड. इट मे लीड टू और मे नॉट लीड टू हार्मिंग अदर ऑल्सो, राइट? मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इट इज हार्मलेस काइंड ऑफ थिंग. Here there is no condition or restriction on harming someone or not. Someone get pleasure while engaging into hunting activity, so that is justified under hedonism. Self-interest meaning my interest should be served, right? So how is it different from hedonism, egoism? यहाँ भी interest की बात हो रही है, वहाँ pleasure की बात हो रही है. How is it different? Can anyone differentiate between these two? Yes. प्लेजर की वहां बातें नहीं है, आपका इंटरेस्ट सर्व होना चाहिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई एम गिविंग यू वन एग्जाम्पल. यू ऑल wake up early at approximately 7 a.m. to attend the class at 8 a.m. in this severe winter, right? Now, in which category you will put your action into, egoism or hedonism? Egoism. Why? You had a choice to stay in your quilt and enjoy the pleasure of warmth, right, on your bed, but you choose to attend the class because you have a wider self interest in mind to become civil servant. कि एक बार बन जाऊं फिर तो उसी में ही रहना है मुझे, right? बस बन जाऊं एक बार, right? So self interest और ego hedonism में difference समझ में आया? If I am waking up early in the morning to attend the class to fulfill my self interest, that is egoism. But suppose I am a follower of hedonism, I would say damn to this class, I will enjoy this pleasure which I am getting right now. क्या पता बनूं नहीं, right? उसके पीछे मैं आज की pleasure क्यों sacrifice करूं, right? So that is something which is difference between hedonism and egoism. Getting the difference? Through this way, you justify your action. That's it. So someone follower of hedonism ethics will justify at everything if it is giving pleasure to some individual. Someone who is follower of egoism again will justify anything if it fulfill their or some individual self-interest. Getting the point? Now, there are various categorization of hedonism also, then there is categorization of egoism. No need to go into that detail, which is not needed. Just have a brief idea what is egoism, what is hedonism. Deontological approach pata hi hoga, right? It is formulated by Kant. In India, Gandhi was propounder of this or supporter of this. It is also mentioned in Gita, which is a book that suggests that you should do duty for the sake of duty. Sometimes it is also called as duty ethics also, because it's wholly focused on doing your duties for no reason of reward or punishment. If you are given or prescribed to do something, you should do it rather than thinking of reward. Like you are being prescribed as an student, you are supposed to study with full devotion. You should do it. Whether you succeed or do not succeed is immaterial, and you should avoid that thought, because that thought will create pressure, and that pressure will affect your performance of today in your studies. So you should basically orient yourself to perform your duty without basically having any thought of reward or punishment, right? So if everyone performs their duty, it will lead to a welfare state. Getting the point? Meaning your ends, I basically switched actually. Here is the means, here is the end. I'm so sorry. Here end should be there, here means should be important. I'm so sorry. I didn't saw that coming. Means you are going to follow the means, which is duty. What is the end is immaterial. Here you are going to follow the ends. मेरा purpose solve होना चाहिए. Whatever means I am applying, it is justified. Getting the point? Do correct that. It is a grave mistake, suicidal mistake. Now, this is a duty approach forwarded by Kant. Sometimes it is called as Kantian ethics. Sometimes it is called as Gandhian ethics. Sometimes it is called as deontological ethics. Focus on, emphasize on means, right? Whatever the end is immaterial. Next is right-based approach. If any actions you do affects the right of individual, that action is unethical. If any action you do does not have any hampering of the right of an individual, is considered as ethical action. For example, suppose you do an action that lead to restriction of individual into the house. For example, you are a father and you had a son who is in love with some girl, right? Now, what you do, you imprison or kind of you lock that person into your house. Now, right to freedom of speech and expression is already curtailed. Right to movement is also curtailed here. He cannot move outside your house premise. Ultimately, it affecting the right of an individual. It is unethical. Getting the point? Anything you do which will hamper the right of an individual is unethical, is propounded by right-based approach. Got the point? So, Indian government not allowing people of Jammu and Kashmir to access internet is unethical if you apply this, because they have the full right like any other Indian citizen to have access over internet, right? They also want free videos every day by every telecom operator, so which they are not having access to since 1 month, 2 months, right? So that is unethical. Similarly, every individual in India has right to education. If government is not building school, you are hampering their right. Right to food is also part of human right. If everyone in India is not having access to food, it is unethical on part of Indian government who is duty bound to provide food to everyone. Getting the point? In Shanghai, China, there is a rule that any person who is living in village in China cannot enter into the boundary of Shanghai, rural person, from China itself, right? They required permission. Is it hampering their right of movement? Yes. So under right-based approach, it is unethical. Indian, yes, I was about to come to that point. ILP is also an example of same thing. There is some right of movement of individual in India. In inner line permit restrict that line, basically right of movement, right? That is unethical if you apply right-based approach. But again, there is another argument against this, that your movement should not hamper the demography of that place as well as the tribal basically characteristic of that place. So it is justified by that argument. We'll discuss those arguments also. But in ethics, if you are following right-based approach, it is unethical. Got the point? So any area where imposition of curfew is there, like under CAA protest, curfew is imposed in many areas in India, that is ethical or unethical? Under right-based approach, do clearly mention that under right-based approach, it is unethical. Is it clear? Any doubt? So these are all about your ethics and theory.